Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to wire in a standard wall socket as well as a GFCI, why you need one of these and where you should put them. So let me show you. So everybody knows what GFCI stands for, right? Of course, I mean we all know, but just in case you don't, it stands for ground fault circuit interrupter. And what that means is this socket is basically like another breaker. If for some reason the tool or the appliance that you have plugged into this socket malfunctions or something else down the line on this circuit faults or grounds out, it helps prevent further damage. It also actually prevents fires from starting, so that's the main purpose. But really, every house nowadays has these, so sometimes you have to replace them. In my case, I'm actually installing brand new circuits, so I have one of these in every single circuit. I'm going to show you where you put them and why you need to put them there, and I'm also going to show you how they wire up. They wire up pretty much the same as any other socket, so I'll be showing you on this one how we wire them, but I'm going to show you also where these go and why. So just to start off, I'll show you some of the tools that I'll be using. I'm going to use some needle nose pliers, some of these wire strippers. I like to use a straight blade to help me cut the housing on the wire. We got our Phillips and our flathead, and then we also have our GFCI outlet and then our standard socket here. Just so you know, more commonly found in ceiling lighting is going to be your 14-2 solid core wire, and that's 14 gauge, 2 wires, which is your black and your white. They don't usually count the ground because every wire you're going to buy is going to have a ground. The other one that we're going to be finding in the walls, or most commonly for wall sockets, is your 12-2. And that's 12 gauge wire. It's a little bit thicker. It's usually meant for a higher load of electricity. So again, 12 gauge, 2 wires, which is your black and your white. If you ever see on the shelf at the store 12-3, that's when you'll find the white, the black, and the red, which is the additional hot wire that you can run. So most commonly in the houses, and what you're probably going to find is a 14-2 with the white housing, or the 12-2, which is the yellow housing. That's pretty standard. So what we have here is one of our common wall sockets. As you can see on the back, nowadays they write it on pretty much everything white, and then you can see right here where it says hot, or where you would put your black wire. They make it pretty easy so you don't get it confused and you know which side, which color wire is supposed to go. White on this side, hot or black on this side, and then you're going to tie your solid copper wire or your ground to the green. The green screw or green wires, sometimes you'll find, are always going to be your ground. Another thing that you might find sometimes is, depending on what kind of socket you buy, they'll actually have push-ins where you can actually strip the wire and push it right in, and it makes it a lot faster. You don't have to worry about putting any of these bends in there, and you don't have to worry about tightening down 4 different screws. You can really just strip it and push it in on the correct side. Here I've put some bends into the wires, and I'll show you why. Because you want it to hook in there where the screw's at, and you put a bend in it ahead of time. It'll help you out and speed things up. I make the bend in the direction that the screw will be tightened. And then when you go to actually put it on the socket, it helps it hook in there. And then when you go to turn the screw, it actually helps tighten down the wire because it's already bent in the direction that you're turning the screw. So then you just repeat that process. As you can see here, it takes a little bit of time messing with the wires, and that's why I would recommend spending a couple extra pennies and get the sockets that have the push-in application. They will still come with the screws, but you'll see on the back that they have the little holes next to it that correlate with each screw, and it makes it a lot faster being able just to push it right in, and you don't have to mess with putting all these bends in the wires. But this is the standard way, and so I wanted to show you that. You can see with the black wires, I still bent it in a clockwise fashion, but you gotta remember that since on the other side, it's actually just basically flipped over. But it's gonna be the same thing when you go to hook the wire in, Having that bend just makes it go a little bit faster. So now you have both blacks on the hot side, you have both whites on the white side or the neutral side, and then you're gonna have your ground here. The ground is always the copper wire, and the reason I twisted it here is because it's gonna be difficult to actually wrap two copper wires around this single screw. By wrapping them together, I'm basically connecting them, and again, this is a bare wire, so it doesn't necessarily matter that this is all exposed. The main thing is that you have them all tied together so the whole circuit at the end of the day is grounded. So ground's gonna be a very important wire you don't want to skip over. But they're really easy to work with. And just to make it a little bit simpler, it's easy just to tie in one wire instead of two. And now this ground's tied in, and as well as the one that will travel along the wall to the next circuit. So everything's tied in properly. And then when you go to tuck these into the wall, you're gonna put some bends into them and you're gonna tuck it back into the wall. But this is what's actually going on in that confined space. I'll show you guys actually how it looks wiring it into the wall, but I wanted to show you without all the obstructions how you can do this and how you can speed things up by maybe putting those bends in first, making sure you have enough wire strip to do that, or like I said, buy the sockets that have the push-ins. That will save you a lot of time. So this is how your standard socket wires up. And I'll show you that this GFCI plug is really no different. The only main feature that you'll see is this bright yellow sticker, which says that every terminal under this label will be for wiring up additional sockets. What that means is that the load carried from the circuit is gonna come off of these two terminals, which is why they cover it first. They wanna make sure that the power coming from the house starts at these top two terminals. It's labeled white and hot. So the main wires that are coming in to power this circuit are gonna start here. Everything else is gonna come off the bottom and continue through the chain. That's the load. Someone told me once to think of it as a truck pulling a trailer. This is gonna be the truck, and the trailer connects here, and every other socket afterwards is gonna be wired off of here. So these sockets are really just more sensitive on the direction of which way the power is coming in and going out. But they have this sticker here to slow you down before you start just plugging in wires, because on most of these other sockets, it doesn't really matter which direction the power is coming in or out. It's just that you have the whites on one side and the blacks on the other side. This one actually matters where the power is coming in and which way it's flowing out. That way, every other socket afterwards is protected by this GFCI. That's the main purpose of these plugs, is that in case there's a fault or a ground somewhere in the circuit, this will stop it before it gets back to the main control panel, and it actually will help prevent a fire or further damage to your circuit. So I'll show you guys a little bit more on these, but let me first show you what this looks like real time wiring it into a wall. So here we are with my outlet that I've wired into my garage and the powers that I've ran to this socket. I have power coming in from the control panel here, and I have power going out down this way to the rest of the sockets. When I put my wire in, I made sure I had a long enough length to be able to work with later on. But now that I'm ready to go ahead and wire it in, I can cut it more to a workable length. Usually, I'm comfortable with a couple inches outside the box. Next, I'll strip this casing. Be careful not to cut yourself. So I'll actually pull the wires away, try to isolate the casing. And I'll come back in here with my snips. And I'll cut it back. Now, since I know that my white wires are going to be on the left, my black wires will be over here on the right. I can go ahead and start positioning them there so that they're right where I need them when I get ready to wire in the plug. Do a little bit of organization here. It helps. So after I've done a little bit of organizing, I put my black wires on the right, my white wires on the left, and I have both my grounds going down to the bottom. And that way I can keep everything kind of separated. Next step is to strip the wires. So I have all those stripped. Then I'll go ahead and start putting in those bends or those twists that I showed you. Clockwise on the right, on the white side. Then it's pretty much flipped over, but in the same direction for the black wires. Whenever you're going to wire in a plug, make sure all the terminals are screwed all the way out. That way you have enough room to actually hook the wire in. So again, to speed up this whole process, it's about all the preparation. Then I can go ahead and hook my white wires. See how the wire actually tightened up as I tighten the screw? That's the whole purpose of having that bend in there. So I have my whites on this side, and my black wires on this side, the hot wires. And then I still have my green terminal for the grounds. Like I showed you, I like to take the grounds, actually tie them together inside the box. These ones are okay to actually just twist together. And then I'll snip off some of the extra. And I'll put my twist in there. And then I can go ahead and get that one hooked. And there we have it. Everything's wired up correctly. Remember, since you have the power off, don't be afraid to move these wires around. It's okay to put a couple bends in them. You just don't want to put any sharp turns into it, no kinks. But it's all right to bend it enough to actually get the plug to fit back in there the way that you want it to. Now all you have to do is put your cover on. And you're good to go. Something else I like to do is label my sockets. Because these are in my garage and it's my workshop, I have all the circuits designated and labeled, and I've want to write them on the circuit or on the sockets, so that in case I ever need to turn this one off specifically or there's a problem, I know exactly which breaker to go to and which breaker needs to be shut off because I have them all labeled. So once I finish, I make sure I label them. This happens to be RV1, and this correlates with the breaker in my control panel, RV1. So I can hit that breaker and I can shut off all the RV1 sockets. And this is just something that I like to do, so it takes out the guesswork in case I ever want to turn it off and work on it really quick. So now this is the beginning of my whole circuit, at least for this one in particular. I'm going to be installing one of these GFCI plugs, and the reason is so that it can protect the rest of the plugs or outlets that are on this circuit. it is very important that you know which way the power is coming in from your control panel, and then everything else thereafter is going to go on these bottom two terminals. I knew that ahead of time, and I made sure I knew which one was my power to start and then which one was actually going to be carrying the load. I have a little P on here on all the wires where it came straight from the control panel and came into the starting box. I wrote power in or P, some way to designate where it came from. But in this particular case, I just wrote a P, and that way I know that this is going to go to my top terminals, and then this one is going to go to my bottom, and this one's going to actually carry on the rest of the sockets. So now that I have everything stripped, I'll do the same thing and I'll start to kind of organize my wires. The only difference is I'm actually going to pay attention that these wires are going to go on the top terminal and these wires are going to go on the bottom terminal. This is going to be my power coming in, and this is going to be the load that's carried by the GFI circuit. Normally I would be putting in twists into all these wires so that it helps with hooking up the socket. Normally I'd be putting a twist into all these wires so that I can then hook them onto the terminal and screw them in properly. But what's nice about this plug is that I can actually just slip this in and I can tighten it down, and I don't have to put any twists. It makes it a little bit faster. It's very similar to the features I was talking about on a lot of the other plugs, where it has a little hole and you can actually just plug it in and it pinches it and you don't have to do any of the twisting or the screwing down. Makes it a lot faster. This is a little bit more expensive plug, so they have that feature there where you can actually just clamp down two wires together. You can actually just take two wires together and clamp them down. So this is my white side. This is my black side, the hot side. So again, the top terminals are where the power comes in, and that's this line coming in from the top. And then this bottom circuit is where the power is going to be carried on. And then this white wire actually goes to the rest of the sockets. And so it goes down here on the bottom terminal. So just like that, it clamps in. So my power coming in and my power going out. I just do the same thing on this side for my hot wires. And then I have my ground terminal here on the bottom. And in this case, I don't need to twist them again because it also has that clamp down feature. And that's pretty much it. Pretty easy, right? So hopefully you guys like this. I did this first so that you guys could actually see exactly what I was gonna be doing when I was installing the plugs in the wall in the garage. As you can see, It's a little bit shorter wires. There's not enough room to really get the camera in there. So I tried my best to get the right angles, but I wanted to do this for you guys first so you could see what was gonna be going on. But it's pretty easy, they're pretty straightforward. All the sockets nowadays have everything labeled on them, and even the GFCI has it labeled. If you are gonna be replacing a GFCI plug, just make sure that when you remove the old one, that you're replacing the same wires that say it's the carry or the load, and that the ones that are coming in for the power are, again, going to the same terminal. So that's the only thing you have to pay attention to on the GFCI is if you're gonna replace it, making sure that the same wires go in the same locations so that the rest of the plugs down the chain are protected properly. But it's not too much different. They all wire up the same and everything's labeled on the sockets. So they make it pretty easy for you. No need to call out an electrician. Rule number one, make sure you turn off your breaker. Once you've done that, you can pretty much go for it and try it yourself. So hopefully the video was a little bit helpful, makes you a little more comfortable on trying it. And if you did like the video, make sure you hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'm gonna be making a lot more videos. I always cover electrical. I'm gonna be covering all kinds of construction and different things I'm building. So if you do like the video, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and spread the word. See you guys on the next one.